as the brains got bigger, we had to give birth to our babies earlier and earlier and earlier.
It worked phenomenal. Like it really, really did.
Babies don't need freedom. They need security.
Dr. Harvey, welcome to Dad Edge. It is really, really good to meet you. Good to see you.
And you too, Larry. Really a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this.
Me and you both. Like I remember, so it's so funny. I told my wife that I was interviewing you today, and her first reaction to this was like, "Oh my gosh, he saved our lives when we first became parents." So like we your book, I don't even remember who recommended it, but we bought it.
Mhm.
And we just, we loved it. But man, you completely changed our lives. Like helped us with calming babies and getting sleep schedules and all kinds of amazing things. But, first question I have for you is like, did you ever think, going to medical school and being a pediatrician that you'd be doing this? I mean, this is pretty cool.
No, I didn't. I didn't ever think this. I mean, number one, I had no idea what it meant to be a doctor. There are no doctors in the family. I was, was completely, unexpected what would happen because I loved everything too. I love surgery. I love, all sorts of aspects of medicine. But I especially, I was working in the South Bronx, in medical school, and it's hard. It's hard. Hats off to the people who take care of the sick and the elderly and people with chronic illness. That was really hard for me. For some people, it's too hard to take care of children because it's so, it's so tragic when their lives are they're suffering. But I felt that kids get better for the most part. They're resilient, they get through things. And parents were like bumping into walls and stuff. They needed help. So it really felt like it was an interesting area for me, and I chose wisely. I've really had a great time doing this for my professional career.
That's so cool. When did you, I'm so curious. I mean, I've read the books and all those things, but when did you realize within medical practice that you're just like, I think I want to write this, write a book or like start this particular mission of happy babies and happy toddlers?
I worked. I was very lucky to have mentors who really underscored this issue about medicine isn't just being smart and knowing things, it's how do you communicate with people, because ultimately you're a caregiver. You're not a brain encyclopedia. You're somebody who's taking care of families, people, their lives. And so that was really drummed into me early on in my career. And I had great opportunities learning that. And then I wanted to teach that to doctors. I wanted to teach communication skills, teach that to parents, communication skills, to how do you improve relationships. And um, and then little by little, I started to realize that there was like a huge thing that we totally got wrong in taking care of children, which used to be, we used to say, let them cry, don't cuddle them too much because you're going to make them soft and they need to toughen up in the world. And of course, kids do have to toughen up, and it is something that they have to be prepared for the ups and downs of life. But it's not something that you need to do in the first 6 months of life. They're little babies, right? Um, and so in our culture, we basically say some babies just cry. We call it colic. We don't know what that is. Goes away in a few, 4 or 5 months, gets better. But people really struggle and suffer in those first 6 months of a baby with no sleep and crying babies. I actually was working with one of the head trainers of the Navy SEALs, and he was telling me that that's how we train our special forces to endure torture. We put them through prolonged sleep deprivation with the sound of babies crying over loudspeakers. And so this can really wear you down. It leads
Jeez.
to child abuse and stuff. I mean, you've lived it, right? You've been
Yeah.
through it. You've done your SEAL training with 4 kids. So anyway, so all of that. So I studied a lot and learned a lot of things that weren't really well understood. I never had time to write a book until one of my patients. So I was practicing in Los Angeles and had a lot of celebrities as patients, and one of them had a nanny who I taught everything to this nanny and taught this to the moms, and then I heard this nanny is writing a book about baby calming. And I thought, geez, I should have written, now someone's going to steal everything that all my ideas and stuff. Turns out she had her own ideas. She didn't steal anything from me, but it was a real successful book. And after that, I got kind of kicked in the butt and said, I got to now write this book, because, it's got to be done. It's got to be out there to help parents. So it was a book and a video. And I'll talk to you about the video in just a little bit, but that was kind of the kick in the butt to kind of get it all done.
That is such a cool story. Because yeah, I mean, like a busy pediatrician, how in the world am I going to write this book? And you're right. My gosh, man, we followed all your steps with our first two boys, and it worked phenomenal. Like it really, really did. And but the interesting thing is that we still had to get up at night and that kind of thing, but we always went back to those things. And but I'll tell you, we had our third boy back in 2013, and yeah, Navy SEAL training. This poor kid was so colicky that if he was awake, he was screaming. There, he
Mm.
refused a pacifier, would not take it. You try to put anything in this kid's mouth to soothe him other than like a bottle, and he was freaking out. Swaddling didn't work. It actually got up to the point where my wife and I would eat dinner in shifts because if he was awake, he was screaming, and we would just bring him in. Like the other person that wasn't eating, we'd bring him in the master bedroom, turn on the TV, we'd hold him. I mean, like literally doing the whole thing where you're bouncing them, you're holding them, you're walking around with them. Nothing, absolutely
Hmm.
nothing worked. And we found out that he had a really, really bad case of GERD up to the point where they actually put him on a compound drug because the regular drugs weren't working. But it was like 4 or 5 months of this, and it
Yeah.
was it was torture. It really
Yeah.
was because like we weren't sleeping and he was miserable, we were miserable. And even, on days that we would get a little bit of extra rest, if he was awake, he was crying. And it was really hard. But like
Yeah.
he had an outlying condition that really caused that. So it was kind of like the doctor was like, look, he'll probably, you're doing everything right. He'll eventually grow out of it, which he did, but it definitely took 4 to 5 months.
No, that's really, really, really tough. And sometimes you do that, you go through that, I mean, that can lead to depression and marital stress and all sorts of,
Oh yeah.
it's hard when you're juggling all those balls and you don't get, if you can get some sleep, you can kind of get through those things. But um, so what's curious about that for me and or really kind of the showing point of all of this is that what I like to teach are these simple skills to help you be able to calm your baby and get sleep and you feel like a magician and it's so great. But when it doesn't work, that's a red flag. That tells you, hey, this should be working. I need to find out if there's something else going on because GERD or acid reflux, where that pain is coming from the acid coming back from the stomach, or food allergies can be a problem. There's 7 or 8 or 9 things that can actually cause the crying to not get better with the normal things that you do with babies. So a lot of doctors use this my 5 S's approach as a way of figuring out if this isn't a baby who's got a problem or doesn't have a problem. Because if they calm down and they're easy peasy when you do these 5 S's, then you pretty much, you're high-fiving each other and you're pretty much, done with it. And if it's not working, that's a sign that you got to push the doctors to figure out what's going on.
Let's talk about that. What are the 5 S's?
So the Happiest Baby, that's the first book I wrote, and it's about kids, really the first 6 months of life. And the key concept to that is that babies, you're ready to give birth after 7 or 8 months. I mean, the last month is not very glamorous for our wives and partners, but the baby is not ready for the world. The baby is a fetus when they're born, and it takes them 4, 5, 6 months to really be ready for the world. And so we call that the fourth trimester. The three trimesters are when the baby's inside, and then that 3 to 6 months afterwards, the baby's really still a fetus, and you have to hold them and rock them and shush them. I mean, think of it this way. I don't know if you've ever seen a baby horse or a baby cow, but they're up on 4 legs in the very first hour of life,
Yep.
and they can run the first day. Now they have to do that to survive. If they can't run, they're going to be eaten by the wolves and bad things are going to happen. Our babies survive because of our big freaking brains, and the head is so big that can barely come out. That's why some women even have to have cesarean sections, because that melon just can't fit through. And so as the brains got bigger, we had to give birth to our babies earlier and earlier and earlier. And so we give birth to babies, they slide out, but they really still need what they had inside. And so what's it like inside? A lot of people don't know this. They think it's like quiet and still and, peaceful inside. Actually, it is a symphony of sensations before the baby
Really?
is born.
Huh.
So every time the woman breathes, her diaphragm is rocking down against the top of the womb, rocking that baby. And of course, when she's walking around, there's a lots of jiggly motion that's going on. And women will tell you that it's when they go to bed at night that the baby starts kicking and getting more active. I've had women put their babies to sleep before, when the baby's still inside. If you pop your belly back and forth like a tortilla, you can kind of rock that little
Right.
fetus back into calm. So constant motion is one thing. To have constant sound. The sound is as loud as a vacuum cleaner. The babies have this blood flow, and their heads are right next to these blood vessels where the blood is whooshing through. So that sound is strong. They can also hear voices and things like that, but mostly they hear this sound. So when they're born, to have totally no sound is like weird for them. It's like sensory deprivation. And then the third thing is they're constantly held. They're bundled up in this little ball, and every time they breathe or move, rather, they're rubbing against this velvet lining of the uterus. Every time their bodies move, they're getting these tactile sensations. And so to be out in the world completely unraveled on your back is totally weird for babies. So if you understand this fourth trimester idea, then the next thing, and this was really, if I have any claim to fame, it's the discovery that babies have an off switch for crying and an on switch for sleep. And that's called the calming reflex. And so babies are born with like 70 built-in bits of software, things you don't have to teach them. It's like your computer's got built-in software. You don't teach a baby how to suck. You don't teach a baby how to swallow. You don't teach a baby how to cry. You don't teach a baby how to blink. All of those things are built in because they need to be there for the baby to survive. It turns out what wasn't known before I wrote this Happiest Baby book and made this video is that babies have a calming reflex, that when you imitate 5 qualities of their womb experience, you're able to take a screaming baby, make them calm, oftentimes in seconds. And so, so the 5 S's are the 5 ways you turn on the calming reflex. And those 5 S's are swaddling, which is snug wrapping with the arms down, like you're the expert, you're the master, I bet, at that right now. The side or stomach position. Now, Larry, you never do that for sleeping babies. You always want babies to sleep on the back, but for calming crying, the back is the worst position. Babies feel like they're falling. They feel insecure on the back. So you roll them over on your arm. They call it the football hold, or across your lap. There are a lot of different ways of doing this. The third S is shushing or white noise. And now a lot of people have white noise machines. We've got the best one, we think, but white noise machines are commonly used by parents for helping babies sleep. Even parents sleep with white noise now. And I'll tell you about white noise because there's a nuance to that that really makes it work best. And then the fourth S is swinging or rhythmic motion, and the fifth S is sucking. And it turns out that every baby is different. They all do better with the swaddling, with the arms down, but some of them do better with swaddling and then sound. You go shh right by their ear, and magically they calm down. Other kids, you do that and nothing happens. And then you got to add the jiggly motion, and that can work like crazy. Sometimes you got to do 2 or 3 or 4 of these together. And then when it's like your third child, where that didn't really seem to work, that's when you start scratching your head and you go, there's got to be something else going on here. So that's kind of the overarching thing. And what I love is that what I tell people is I don't recommend my book, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a good book, it's interesting, but it's hard to get through a book. It's hard to remember it anyway. And doing the 5 S's is it's more like tying your shoelaces. You learn it better by watching than reading a book about it. And so we have this video that we've now used. I mean, millions of people have used this. We teach it on military bases and parenting programs and child abuse prevention programs and all sorts of places like that. It's a half hour video, 30 minutes or so. And what I love about it is guys get this. I mean, like I like to joke, men are terrible at breastfeeding. We are just no good at breastfeeding.
Right.
But we are really good at baby calming. We're actually so good at baby calming because swaddling is like an engineering job. We want to do it exactly right. And then our arms are longer and stronger, and we shush a little bit louder. Sometimes women are a little bit hesitant, they kind of want to be a little bit too dainty about it. But when you do all the S's exactly right, that's when you see this magic happen. Like Ashton Kutcher told me, he said he loves it when he sees a crying baby because he can go there and be the magician and everyone's going, ooh, about what he's able to do. So anyway, I love it that guys are all over this. It's part of boot camp for new dads, like on military bases. And I have many more guys giving me high fives on airplanes, like you're the dude on the video, because they really, it empowers them. It gives them the skills that really makes them the baby magician.
I agree. With the exception of our third born, 3 out of 4, these things worked amazing. And ours was the third one was just because he had a pretty severe condition of GERD. But I'll tell you the white noise, we bought our kids a white noise thing. We also bought them a swaddle blanket, and then we bought them I think it's called the wedge. It's the thing where it allows them to sleep on their side because that's what
Mm-hmm.
our boys definitely like the most. But it was like clockwork when it came to stuff like that. Swaddle them up. It was almost like a cue that they knew that they were supposed to calm and relax, in which they would.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even when they got a little bigger, we did this too. And by the way, we were just completely, totally lost, obviously, when we had our first two, like totally, totally lost. And even like as our kids got bigger, like I'm talking like 6 to 9 months, they still actually liked being swaddled, and but they were kind of getting too big. So we would do this thing where we would allow them to have one arm out of the swaddle, and they
Mm-hmm.
still loved it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but it was definitely a game changer. That makes so much sense though, if that's how they start and that's what they're used to. What do you think parents do? Like new parents, like what are the common mistakes that actually do the opposite? And I'm not just talking about sleep, but like just things that parents do. And you're like, you probably should, instead of doing that, do this.
Yeah, yeah. That kind of gets to what you just said before about feeling lost in the beginning, because being pregnant is no preparation for having a child.
Right.
You think it is. You think you're ready. You've gone through 9 months, and then it's like, whoa. I kind of compare that to flying a plane versus skydiving. You can fly. It's flying a plane. You got a steering wheel. You're kind of accelerate. It's a little bit like driving a car. It's kind of similar, but jumping out of a plane, that's totally different. And so what's interesting for me about parents having taken care of, thousands and thousands of families is that probably parents today are the most educated parents in history, but maybe the least experienced when it comes to taking care of babies. Because it used to be you'd have 4 or 5 brothers and sisters, and you would, learn how to do this in your family. And people don't have that experience today. And so, you know how they say kids don't come with instructions. My goal has always been for my baby book, my toddler book, to be instructions for parents to kind of, here's what you do this, and this will work. You know what I mean? It's very prescriptive, and very action oriented. That's kind of what I always did as a pediatrician to kind of guide people along to be more successful in raising their kids. Um, one of the things that's I think it's important for people to understand is that for most people don't have a nanny, right? Most people don't have a night nurse or things like that. That's pretty damn expensive. But 100 years ago, everybody had 5 nannies. You had your grandma, your aunt, your older sister, your next door neighbor's older daughter. There were a lot of people to help you. And today's parents are holding down 2 jobs. They don't necessarily live near their extended family, and their parents are still working, or they're not available, or one reason or another. You're on your own. And so it's really important to give parents tips on skills, which I try to do, but also on the right products to use. And I'm speaking about this because of the things you mentioned that you use, the swaddle blanket, the white noise, and the wedge. And I'll add to that SNOO, which is a little baby bed that, came after your time, but it's something that a lot of parents are using right now. So swaddle blanket, swaddling is tight wrapping. People used to say, don't do it. Babies hate that, because babies fight you a lot of times when you start to swaddle them. And you just have to be the parent and take command of the situation and say, okay, I know you're resisting me a little bit, but you're going to be happy once I do this and I do the other things. Then you're going to melt in my arms and be calm. So we created, so Happiest Baby 25 years ago is when that came out. And that's the first time that people were recommending swaddling in the United States in a couple of 100 years. People had thought swaddling, it's restrictive. We should give babies freedom. Babies don't need freedom. They need security. They need to know that you are going to protect them and you're in charge. And so swaddling helps that to happen. So we created something called Sleepy, SLEEPEA, which is the most awarded swaddle in America now. It's a 5-second swaddle. So it's a super easy, it takes all of that origami guesswork, where does this flap go and that flap go? And it really is great. And even as you said, when they get older, there are armholes, so you can let one or both arms out and makes it easy to do. That's number one. Number two, from a white noise point of view, it turns out white noise is kind of shh, that kind of sound. Actually, what works best for babies is brown noise, and for adults as well. Brown noise is a
Brown
more
noise.
low, yeah, brown noise or red noise, they call it. It's a little bit more rumbly and low pitched.
Huh.
So it turns out there's two types of white noise that have completely opposite effects on your nervous system.
Really? Okay.
There's high pitch white noise. Shh. Like if I go shh to you, that's like, what? I'm saying shut up, right? I'm saying be quiet. And what it does is it gets your attention. Shh. You could have a room full of people. You'll get everybody's attention by doing that.
Oh yeah.
Not so good for sleeping. Shh. You don't really want to sleep with that. On the other hand, the sound of an airplane, a bus, a train doesn't get your attention, but it's pretty good for sleeping. And so it turns out,
So true.
right? So if you go, shh, you're saying one thing. If you go, you're saying something completely different. And so we created a white noise machine called SNOOBie, SNOOBIE, that is a white noise and a nightlight thing, which we think is the best, specially engineered sounds, because nobody knows white noise the way I do. I don't know why that is. That's kind of weird, but no one had figured it out before. But it also has special breathing settings to teach your child mindful breathing. So kids can learn to soothe themselves, to calm themselves down. They can do that on their own, starting at 2.5, 3 years of age. Using the device, they can practice with it and learn to slow their breathing and be able to be better control of themselves. So that's, again, something that other white noise machines don't do. The third thing is the wedge. The wedge is out, man. Wedge is gone.
No more wedge.
No more wedge. No more wedge. Because babies got wedgied. They got stuck under the wedge and
No
babies died
way.
that way. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez. I did not know that.
Yeah. So there
Wow.
are a lot of
Okay.
things that have been taken off the market. There was something called a rock and play,
Yeah.
which would sit the baby up and it would rock them back and forth, and that helped them sleep. But babies' heads are so heavy that the babies' heads would go forward, and over 100 babies died in those things. Yeah. So you're trying to just survive as a parent and help your baby. You
Right.
certainly don't want to be doing something that puts them at risk. So 8 years ago, exactly, it's our birthday now, we launched a product called SNOO. And SNOO we built it with MIT Media Lab engineers, and it rocks and shushes baby. It imitates the womb, basically. So it rocks and shushes the babies all night long. And when the baby cries, the bed responds with 4 different levels of motion and sound, imitating the most experienced parent. And then once the baby calms down, it works its way back down to that low level. And if the baby doesn't calm down after a minute or two, you just take them out because it means they need a feeding. So we've measured now, anyone can rent this for like $5 a day. It ships anywhere across the United States.
Wow.
Um, Tens of thousands of people get this for free from their employer. So Chase Bank and Under Armour and Snapchat,
Oh my gosh.
Spirit, what's it called? Spirit Air Supply, I think it's called, in St. Louis, in your town, provides it for employees. So places all across the country give this as a benefit for their new parents, and it costs the company just $4 or $5 a day. It's like a cup of coffee. Anyone can rent this for a little bit more than $5 a day. It's like a Starbucks, to get a 24-hour helper. If you were to bring a babysitter into your house to hold your baby for 15 minutes while you cook dinner, you'd pay $5 for that. And now for $5, you can get a 24-hour helper. It sleep trains your baby. It also it calms about 50% of crying. So by rocking and shushing the baby, the cry episodes are stopped so quickly. A lot of people in the morning, they have a little app which has a sleep report for them. And they look and they go, honey, did you know the baby woke up last night? I didn't hear that. Did you? Because the bed put the baby to sleep so quickly that the parents were able to get their rest. So we've measured 700 million hours of sleep with this bad boy now. And we've
Wow.
demonstrated that it immediately adds an hour to the baby's nighttime sleep, which you could do if you drove him in the car, so adding an hour to sleep is not that surprising if you do the right things. But what's really surprising, we didn't anticipate this, is by 2 to 3 months, which is kind of when you're going back to work, right? A 2 to 3 month old normally gives you about a 5 hour stretch of sleep, sometimes 4 hours, 5 hours. It's pretty average. In SNOO, it's 6.5 to 7 hours of unbroken sleep. That makes all the difference in you being able to take care of your other kids, get to work, be not irritable, don't get in a car accident, all that kind of stuff. So SNOOs now, we're working to get these on insurance plans. We're just launching Medicaid programs so we can get these to the most at-risk families. We're almost through. Hopefully this year we'll get into the National Defense Authorization Act so we can provide these to our active duty military folks and ultimately our retired military folks.
Amazing.
And so we've worked really, really hard to take this new innovation, which has won more awards than anybody. It's in the Smithsonian Institution, if you can believe that, in the permanent collection of the Smithsonian as an important advance in innovation. And so we wanted to get this into everybody's hands to be able to help them do the hard job of taking care of their kids, but have a little bit of a 24-hour helper in the house, not just for sleep, mind you. When you're cooking dinner, when you're taking a shower, when you're playing with your 3-year-old, when you're doing your chores, when you're just vegging out for a half hour because you just gotta take a break. SNOO is there to give you an extra 15, 20 minutes of keeping your baby calm and happy. And I'll tell you one last thing. I know I'm talking about this, but that's because we're so excited about it. The other thing we're looking at is improving brain development, because you have to ask yourself the question, what's best for the developing brain of a child? Is
Sleep.
it sleep? And when you're sleeping, is it to be in total dark silence? Or is it to be held and rocked and responded to? Because you tell me, when you hold your babies and you rock them in your arms, do they fall asleep or do they melt into your arms? Like it's so floppy and relaxed.
They melt.
Yeah, they melt. And what that means is we're reducing the stress reactivity in the brain. And why do babies sleep why do they sleep 6.5 to 7 hours instead of 5 hours at a stretch? We are maturing the brain's sleep regulatory ability 2 to 3 months earlier than was ever thought possible. So now we're looking at other aspects of brain development, and we haven't proven it yet, but there are many studies that show that when you hold and rock babies more hours more a day, that improves their brain development. And so we're excited about this possibility. Again, it's just a possibility. We haven't proven it yet, but the possibility that we were wrong all this time thinking babies should be in dark silence. And that actually, for the first 6 months, they should have these calming rhythms all night long to nurture them, to feed them with this very profound level of calming. So it's kind of Listen, I'm old enough that I remember my mother's car seat for me was her right arm. I mean, that was the car seat,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Now you couldn't drive 2 minutes with your kids not being in car seats.
Yeah.
You wouldn't put them in a high chair if you didn't belt them in. A
Yep.
stroller, you wouldn't put them in if you didn't belt them in. But the number one place babies die is in their own beds. 3,700 babies every year in the United States. That's the number of Americans who died in 9/11, but it's happening every single year. No change in the last 25 years. And so with SNOO, we keep them on the back. By improving sleep, we keep them out of their parents' bed, which is another danger. And our goal, and this is why the FDA gave us de novo authorization, because we keep babies from rolling to danger. And by improving sleep, we keep them in their own beds. So we're excited by the possibility that we'll be able to improve sleep safety for these millions of babies every year and help more of them stay alive.
So a question about the brain development. And I know none of this is proven yet. We're kind of all in theory, but it kind of makes sense to me that if a baby isn't in fight or flight, where it's screaming, stressed out, I don't know where I'm at, like I'm distressed, I'm crying, all these other things, like that is difficult. Like that feels more like something traumatic and stressful versus something restful, right? And restful means, that we're developing better, we're growing better. Is that the theory behind all this?
Yeah, exactly. And studies have shown that better sleep, more sleep does improve brain development. And for the adults as well. Listen, if you have a little kid, I mean, you experience this. When you're really good at these stuff, you feel pretty smart. You're
Yeah.
high-fiving your friends, you're saying, this is not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And so my job is the experience you had with your third son could have been your experience with the first two if you didn't know, the five S's and stuff. I mean, some babies are easy, but a lot of them are challenging. And so if you feel successful and smart and competent, you want to be there for your child. It kind of makes you more bonded, it builds your relationship. It makes you feel like a good dad or a good mom. And so the goal is not just to improve this from the baby side. We want babies to be more trusting, secure, and improve brain development. And then for parents, we want you to feel more successful, more competent, more like you're the best parent who ever lived. And that's what I try to do with all the books and the tools.
Awesome. I have a question that I've been dying to ask you for 18 years. So, and I think it's right a lot. It's right in line with this.
I'm a
Um,
Sagittarius. Is that the question?
and no, it was actually if
My
you like
birth
long,
sign?
it was actually if you like long walks on the beach, that was actually
Yeah.
it. No, so, I've heard this forever, which is if you're a nervous person or you're stressed out and you're holding your child, they're going to feel that energy and then they're going to get stressed out. So the more calm and confident you are, the more calm they're going to be and all that. And I've always wanted to ask you that question. Is there truth to that? That if the parent is calm, confident, resilient versus even if they are not really showing it, right? But they're holding the baby and maybe they're just like, this feels so unfamiliar. Like this,
Mhm.
is there impact there?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Next question. Not kidding.
You have me there.
So
No,
here's the
but
thing. So
yeah,
here's the thing. So when you're nervous and don't know what to do and you're kind of getting frantic, it's hard to stay on the path.
yeah,
And so, like we're doing the five S's, if your baby's struggling, then you go, oh, maybe this doesn't work for my kid. Maybe they don't like swaddling. Maybe my kid's the one in a million that this doesn't work for. And so you lose confidence, and that can lead you in a bad direction. So, to a certain degree, being able to be calm and stick with the program is important. Now, if it's not working and you're doing it right, and you watch the video and you know you're doing it right, well, then you have to talk to your doctor about, hey, there's something else going on. Like that was your experience. So keeping calm definitely helps. Having said that, we all have our inborn personalities or what they call temperament. Some people are high strung, some people are surfer dudes, some people are very sensitive to every little thing, and other people, they could be in a room with 20 snoring people and sleep without being bothered by it. And so infants have their own sensitivity or level of passion where they're big screamers or some kids aren't big screamers. And parents also have their high level of responsiveness or sensitivity to things. So it's a complex mix. Part of it is you are who you are, and your child's going to be, passionate and sensitive no matter what you do. But to be sure, if you can kind of keep your calm, you're more likely to succeed and be able to, deliver the skills that are going to work for most babies.
Very good, man.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Um, how many kids do you have?
I
Just
got
one.
one, a
You got one.
stepdaughter. Yeah.
Okay. Um, just out of curiosity, I'm just curious, how many people have bought your book over the past 25 years or since the inception of you writing it? Like, how many
Well,
copies have been sold?
it's millions. I
I'm
don't know if
sure,
it's
yeah.
two or three, something like that. And then but people share it and stuff like that. So I think and then millions of people have used the video, and we've trained thousands of educators to teach it. It's so interesting right now because a lot of people are taught feeding babies, breastfeeding and bottle feeding. And then they're told, you know what? The other two, so there are three skills you need to really be a great, competent parent in those first months. Feed the baby, calm the crying, and get sleep. The other stuff, shampooing the hair and all that kind of stuff, clipping the toenails, that's all going to work itself out. But feeding, calming, crying, getting sleep are the three critical things. Tons of education about feeding babies. And then we kind of tell parents, you know what? Babies have to wake up a lot. Babies don't sleep a lot. A lot of babies cry. We don't know why, but by 3, 4 months, it gets better. We call it colic. Um, and then it turns out when they're really struggling and suffering, we pediatricians whisper a secret to them. Like, you know what? I didn't tell you this, but there is a magic thing you can do to reduce crying and increase sleep. Drive them all night in the car. You know what I mean? Right?
Right.
Have you been there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a rookie mistake I did too in the beginning. Yeah. With my first
Well,
one.
well, for some kids it's helpful. For some kids it isn't, but most kids, even most adults, fall asleep when they're being driven around in the middle of the night. But the thing of it is, what that tells you is if you can drive a baby around and they sleep and they cry less, it means that we're telling people the wrong thing. If we're saying, babies have to cry, they have to wake up, but actually there's something you can do to help them sleep more and cry less, we need to educate them about what to do. And that's white noise machines and swaddling and motion and SNOO and things like that, that immediately can help them sleep better. So this is exciting for me as a pediatrician because I go to these meetings and teach other pediatricians, hey, we got to up our game here. We got to tell people that these are skills that anyone can do, pretty, they're either free or inexpensive, and they're very, very effective. And so that's kind of what I've been spending the last 25 years trying to do. For babies, toddlers are whole other, kids 8 months to 5 years of age, 6 years of age is a whole other area where parents can be much more effective if they learn a couple of pretty simple, but counterintuitive ideas, about how their brains work and how to communicate with them.
Do you mind if we segue to a different topic, and that's marriage? And because I'm curious about this.
Yeah.
I don't know like what the divorce rate, the argument rate, or disconnect rate. I don't know any statistics on that, but the story I'm telling myself, Dr. Harvey, is that married couples, when they're just thrusted into this new parenting role in 4 to 6 months of being sleep deprived, and when you're sleep deprived, your best friend looks like your worst enemy, and like you're super stressed out. But like, the marital impact of having a new child that you just don't know how to calm, you don't know how to get them to sleep. Um, do you know any stats or any impact on marriage?
I don't know the real stats, real studies that have been done on that, but we definitely know that that's a big impact. What we do have stats on something that's kind of related to that, which is postpartum depression and anxiety, which men can get as well.
Yeah.
About about 20% of new mothers, um, develop depression and or anxiety over the first couple of months. It's mostly related to crying and sleep deprivation and just feeling like you don't know what you're doing. And about 25% of the women who get it have partners who get it as well. So men can get depression and anxiety too, and feel, because all the burdens. I got to support this family now. I'm a father. What does this mean? We're sleep deprived. It's a big adjustment that people don't necessarily get prepared for mentally sufficiently. It's hard to really even understand what it's like having a baby in the house until suddenly you're thrown into the cold pool and you experience that.
Yeah.
Um, but for sure, and exhaustion leads to irritability. It leads to poor memory. It leads to short temper, and all of that stuff. It's not the recipe for long walks on the beach, like you said.
So true.
Yeah.
That I was curious about that just because I mean, I remember so I just this was back in 2017. I had a horrific just health event that lasted about 33 days. Um, I
Mm.
was training for an ultra event and just trained way too hard and just completely overloaded my system and was only sleeping about 2.5 hour and a half to 3 hours a night for 33 straight days, lost 25 pounds. I was just
Wow.
an absolute wreck. I finally, I mean, like mentally, emotionally, physically, I felt broken. I would go to sleep at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I'd wake up between 1 and 2 every night, and then I was just up. And it just killed me. And I could barely function. And, if you think about it, while, some of those stories are severe when, you have a brand new kid at home, but this is some of the things that these brand new parents could be dealing with is like, hey, I only got a few hours of sleep and it's been consistent. Like that is going to eat any human being alive.
Yeah. No, it is literally torture. It's literally torture. It melts you inside, melts your brain. On the other hand, if you can feel competent, if you've got the skills to be good at it, you become a better unit together, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
kind of help each other because you feel successful.
Yeah.
Your partner feels successful, and that actually moves you in a positive direction. I always think of it like a little seesaw. If you're exhausted, crying babies, you're feeling incompetent, that slides you in a bad direction. But if you're feeling smart and competent, then you know how to handle your baby, it slides you in a positive direction of feeling better about yourselves and that kind of thing. I will say that, so we have a website called happiestbaby.com. And we have millions of people who come there just for free information. So people can learn more about the stuff that we've been talking about and get all sorts of free information just by visiting the website.
Not to worry, guys. We'll have that in the show notes for you. This has just been amazing. I mean, like I said, I kind of I kind of feel like giddy a little bit because like I feel like I'm talking to the guy that like literally like saved me and Jessica when we first started having kids. Because and we told everybody about it. We just loved
Mm.
it. But I definitely have that website. Where can people find information about the SNOO? And that, by the way, that's SNOO for you guys. But where can guys find the information on that?
Yeah, same place,
Okay.
happiestbaby.com. We got all of that and little videos you can watch and things like that. Again, our goal with that is everyone will get this for free from their employer or from insurance.
So cool.
But anyone can rent it now for a little bit more than $5 a day, and it ships for free in the continental US. And it's a 1 month minimum. So you can try it out. If you don't like it, you can ship it back. But most people use it for 5 or 6 months because it sleep trains the baby. So by the time you get to 5 or 6 months, it's just like a switch over to the crib and they're in the groove.
So cool, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for saving parents' mental health out there and babies too, because like my gosh, like I didn't that's disturbing. I didn't know like the death rates on some of those things. That's and the last thing you possibly want as a parent is losing your child. But thanks for
Yeah.
giving us some gold around that as well of things to do and not to do as well. But as far as happiestbaby.com, is there social media can people follow you or the brand in some way just
Yeah,
to
the
follow
brand
along?
is on Instagram. We're on Instagram and Twitter and all that kind of stuff as well. LinkedIn, all of that stuff.
It,
So
is it the same? Is it Happiest Baby? Is that the handle like
Happiest
on?
Baby is the Instagram handle. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Guys, not to worry. We're going to have all of Dr. Harvey's links in the show notes for you. Dr. Harvey, as we close out here, I do have one final question for you. You ready for it?
Sure.
Okay, I know you have a bonus daughter and all that good stuff, but you've been in practice for a long time. God knows how many parents you've come across over the years. But I would just love for you to just share, if you could give us a parting piece of wisdom and advice for being a better father and just things that you've seen over the years, what would you tell us?
Um, I mean, there's a couple. I would always joke with my families that the bumper sticker would say "Be flexible or die." You know, having your, you can have your plans, but you gotta be flexible with the child that you're with, and forgiveness is a big thing. You know, forgive yourself for when you make mistakes or what you feel are mistakes, and forgive your family because family is the most important thing in our lives, and it really we need to be generous with ourselves and nurture that the way you would nurture any other good thing in your life. The other thing I would say is that what I came to realize with my patients is that the only normal family is the one you don't know very well. Because once you start talking to people, you start learning this thing that happened and that thing that happened. Everybody's got a story to tell. And so it's important for us to not judge ourselves because Instagram can do that, right? You look at the world and you go, oh, well, everybody's got this perfect life. I saw that with celebrities all the time. You know, they put their pants on one leg at a time. You know, they just are living their lives. And all of us need to give ourselves some grace and recognize that, everybody and give everybody else grace that we're all, just trying to do the best we can in the situation.
I love that. I,
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I think we do need to give ourselves more grace, especially if you're brand new to this stuff. My gosh, it
Mhm.
can be a lot. Gents, you're not going to have to look hard for any of this stuff. Head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday 180 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday 180. Dr. Harvey, thank you so much for coming on today. This was awesome.
What a pleasure.
Um,
Really great.
I know I wish we could have had this face to face like 18 years ago when I first became a parent because I would have looked a lot different. I would have been like, just this, just deer in the headlights. What am I supposed to do? So, but thank you for your resources. They were a game changer, I know, for us and millions of others. So thank you.